Have you ever wanted to make your own knife from scratch? Well, you're about to watch me over the course of 3 days with Sam the blacksmith of Firekeeper Forge take reclaimed metal and turn it into my own everyday carry knife. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I never knew that I would be able to make my own knife. I had so many obstacles in my mind on whether I could do something like that. And Sam is hilarious, an incredible teacher, and a very skilled bladesmith. And I hope you enjoy it. 2-part series, so make sure you subscribe. Let us know how you like the video in the comments and follow along for more.
The end goal is to be able to make a knife with the minimal amount of tools possible. The end product is going to be almost identical to what you can make with what you see around us, with all the big fun tools and a big ass anvil and big shop. If you didn't know where it was made, you wouldn't be able to tell. And that feels important to really showcase, and it really dials in learning and refining the techniques as opposed to using equipment and tools as a crutch. I can bring all this in my truck and like set it up in the desert under a little tarp and just be doing my thing and be completely wherever I want to be. So it feels like a unique and important thing to me, and it's what I'd love to share. What we need to do before we even make a knife is we need to make some tools to be able to make this knife. So for example, we need to make a pair of tongs so we can grip the steel, and you need a pair of tongs. Hands down, you need those. We're also going to need a chisel for cutting material. We're going to need several punches throughout the process. And what better way to learn the basics of blacksmithing than to just make those tools. So this is actually a perfect segue into getting an idea of the tools that we need. There's needs to be some thought on to whether you should make something or whether it would be more efficient if you're just getting started to either buy it from a thrift store or buy it new from a hardware store online. So I personally am under the belief that you should not try and make a hammer at the beginning. You're going to need a hammer to make a hammer. So in this society, there is hammers everywhere. You can go buy a brand new hammer for like $20, or you can find one at a thrift store for next to nothing. So definitely buy a hammer. Lots of different sizes and styles. We'll get into that a little bit more later. These are the two main ones that I use. You'll also want to buy a file. These are inexpensive, extremely useful, and the great news is with most files, if you get a good one, is this is good steel to where in the future your file gets dull. You can just make a knife out of your file and make way more money than this costs. So then you can put that money into other tools. It's really neat. I would also get a C-clamp. That's going to be super handy for a lot of things. And then as far as anvils go, that's going to be like the main focus of any smithing setup. It's like you're doing all of your work on this tool, and as you can see in my shop, that great big one over there, I'm very proud of it. It's probably the biggest in Oregon, just saying. And a blacksmith's value is actually directly related to the size of their anvil, so mine's pretty big. Anyway, so it's not just how you use it, it's how big it is. Anyways, so what I got here, this is some piece of railroad iron. I don't know exactly what this would have been used for. I have found it on this property. What you want in an anvil is the more mass underneath what you're hammering, the more efficient your material is going to be worked. You're going to lose less energy dissipated into the ground the more mass there is. And then after your anvil, you're going to need some kind of forge. And what a forge is it is any contraption to heat up metal. And what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be constructing a forge with the guys here, and then we're going to be using that forge for all of our tools and throughout the entire process. And this is a very simple setup. We're going to be burning solid fuel. We're going to be using charcoal and coal, and that is very easily, like charcoal you can make relatively easily. You can also buy it from the store. And then we're going to be doing a 50-50 mixture of anthracite coal, which is mined from the ground, and it just makes the fire last a bit longer. It lasts longer than the charcoal, but the two of them together works exceptionally well, and that can be relatively easily found. Get it at like Tractor Supply, buy like 40-pound bags of it. Super easy to find. That's pretty much we need: a hammer, an anvil, and a forge, and some steel. So this is what we need for our forge. We need some bricks, just normal, just like $1 bricks from any hardware store. They're not going to last forever. These are a consumable thing. They will eventually crack and need to be replaced. But we're going to need 6 of those. And then the only other thing we're going to need is we're going to need a bellows. And what this is this is going to be our air source for this forge. And this is one of the oldest ways blacksmiths have come up with to pump air into the forge. And it's really simple. It is a leather bag with an area for a pipe to extend out. And the idea is when the bag is open, it traps air, and then you close it and push down and air comes out the tube. Super simple. You don't even need to make this out of leather. You could make this out of a pant leg and just tie some wooden slats to it and make a very precise hole for a pipe to come out. It's not going to work nearly as good as this and is also substantially more flammable, but that will work. You could also, if you have power, use a hair dryer. As long as you're getting air into your fire, that is the number one important thing, and how you do it is pretty irrelevant. And then as far as the piping goes, this is 3/4 inch pipe from a hardware store, and for convenience, so I have this long, like foot-long piece, and then I've hammered it into a taper so it can slide into this elbow. That way when this is in the forge, this will be on the ground like so, I can have my bellows in a convenient and easy to reach spot, and I don't have to like be reaching in an uncomfortable way. And then if we actuate this, you can see we can get quite a lot of air blowing out the end. All right, so to construct this forge, what we need to do is we need this pipe level with the ground. We need bricks on either side of it, and we need to hollow out underneath just in a little hole. So that way, when we have our piece of metal in the forge, like so, there is burning coals all around it. And the bricks are not really insulating the forge. They're keeping the coals from spreading out, because throughout this whole process, the more contained our fire is, the less fuel we're going to need, and the more consolidated the heat's going to be. So now I'm just making it to where this pipe can sit at ground level so that the bricks can kind of sit over it. Okay, wow. That was pretty easy. We have a forge. Simple. Super simple. Love it. We got air and fuel. That's the important part. Doesn't have to be any more complicated than this. So I get a little fire going, and then I'm specifically putting just charcoal on when it's getting started, because the anthracite coal takes a lot of heat to actually start burning. So we'll get our fire nice and hot with just the charcoal first.
Can I come work that bellow while you talk?
Certainly. Cool. All right, so what I have on the anvil here, this is a piece of charcoal. This is what we're getting the forge started with. And then here, this is a piece of anthracite coal. And kind of the differences between these two is charcoal is just charred wood, essentially. And it's very light, it burns very hot and very quick. Blacksmiths have been using this since day one. This is like the original fuel. This is why most of Europe's trees were cut down to make this, to make iron and for blacksmithing. And then kind of when modern like mining and stuff was developed, modern being like, 17th 1700s and onward, then we discovered we could light rocks on fire and burn old dinosaurs. And that's what coal is. And the reason to use coal is it lasts about 10 times as long as charcoal does. So the charcoal kind of holds the heat. That's what's getting started now, and then we'll start adding in the actual anthracite coal, and we'll have a good balance between the charcoal maintaining the heat and the anthracite maintaining like the long lastingness of the fire. And it's crazy. Like, feel this. It's a rock.
Oh, wow.
We're lighting rocks on fire. What is steel? Well, it's not actually on the periodic table of elements, which means it is an alloy, which means it is a combination of 2 or more elements from the periodic table mixed together. So what steel is, it is a mixture of iron, which is this, or let me take a handful of this. This is iron powder collected from a beach with a magnet. So it's iron mixed with carbon. And the reason why carbon is important to make steel is because with different amounts of carbon added to steel, it directly affects its physical properties. So I'm going to be referencing the carbon levels of steel pretty often. And I'm going to be saying low carbon steel or mild steel. Those are the same thing. That means it's a very soft material, because what happens is the higher level of carbon steel has, the harder the material can be. So for a knife that needs to be sharp and stay sharp, you would need a high carbon steel, because that steel needs to be this perfect balance of, it needs to be hard enough to be a good cutting tool, because if it's too soft, it's just going to blunt super quickly and just be terrible. Okay, we're ready to start heating some things up and whacking them. What do you think?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's so fast, actually, once you're rolling.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, let's make a chisel. I'm going to need a piece of high carbon steel for this. Preferably, it's round. Round things don't cut very well. So we need to flatten this out. We need to taper it to where this is probably, I don't know, 3/4 inch round, or maybe a little smaller, maybe 5/8. We need to forge it down to where it's about 3/16 of an inch thick. That way we can then file in our cutting edge, and that's going to be an appropriate thickness to actually be able to cut other pieces of metal. So we can use our chisel made from the same bar of steel we're going to make our knife and other tools out of to cut all the other tools. So this is hot enough. I would call that a bright orange. So I'm going to get it hot again, because that just lost a bit of heat. Okay, you guys ready for this?
Do I cool it on the bellows?
Yeah, you can just stop while I'm out. Okay, I'm going to hold this at a slight angle up. Same with the hammer. Slight angle forward. I'm just going to start flattening off the end. As it's getting wider, now I'm going to flip it to the side and make sure it's not getting too wide. So, that is a taper. That's all a chisel is. We're going to do 2 more things to this. We're actually going to forge the cutting edge in slightly so it takes less time to file. And then we're going to cut it off at an appropriate length so that we can hold on to the end of it. So you can see I now have 2 very distinct angles. That cutting edge is called a bevel. That's going to be coming into a lot of play when we make our knife. But this is like a good basic, like, okay, now we know what a bevel is. I'm going to cut it off about right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out where I'm going to cut this. That way when it's hot, I don't have to worry about trying to find and like measure. I can just immediately do it hot enough. So this, as you can tell, is hot. I'm going to find my mark, which is right here. This is not an ideal way to cut things, but because we don't have a chisel,
Yeah.
this is our option. Okay. Just like that. So what I like to do is I like to get it close. And then what we can do is, because this is high carbon steel and it'll harden if we cool it in water, is I'm going to drip water on this connection. That's going to make it harder and more brittle right in this corner. And I should be able to just break it off. But it's worth it right now to cool it off to see if it will without having to heat it up again. There we go. Just like that. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to file the shape that the cutting edge of the chisel should be, which is going to be slightly rounded. We forged it pretty close, so there's not that much material that actually needs to be removed here. We're just kind of like taking out the lumps and bumps and making it just like a little nicer. And then after I do that, then I'll set the bevel, and then with whatever amount of patience I have left, I'll just kind of dome this back end. So that's our chisel. It's fully sharpened. It's like, you can like feel a burr on it. That doesn't matter. But as long as it's, the sharper it is, the better it's going to cut, basically. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this back end. I'm going to round that over. And then we're going to go over quick and dirty heat treating so that this doesn't get damaged the moment we start using it. Okay, that's as far as I'm going to take this one. Doesn't need to be any better than that for right now. So we are going to harden and temper this chisel so that it can withstand impact and not get damaged on the cutting edge. So these iridescent colors are our tempering colors. We're going to go in order from lowest temperature to highest temperature. So we have bare steel, and then it turns kind of like a very light golden yellow. And then in the middle, it's hard to distinguish, but we have the golden yellow turning into a brown, which turns into a purple, which turns into a blue, which turns into a light blue, which turns into a gray. And those colors represent different temperatures. So the light straw yellow starts at around 375 degrees, and that dark gray, or where it turns from light blue to gray at the end, is probably closer to 600 or 700 degrees, which gives you the window of, if you want a softer tool, you would go for like more of a blue color. If you want a harder tool, you'd go for more of like the purple and browns. So that's what we're going to be looking for after we harden this. The residual heat left in this is going to heat the cutting edge up to between 400 and 500 degrees. It'll change color, and that'll be the perfect hardness for our chisel. We're going to heat this up towards glowing a dull orange, around 1500 degrees. Then we're going to cool off 1/2 inch of it in the water. Scrub the steel, look for the colors. That's all we need to worry about for this heat treatment process. Take this out. Cool that off. We're going to leave it in there for 15 to 20 seconds. I'm going to scrub that off with the sandpaper. And now I'm going to look on the cutting edge. The heat's going to creep up from here, and it's going to turn the cutting edge gold to brown to purple. And we want to stop it at the brown to purple range. And we're going to stop it by then cooling it back in the water once the cutting edge is brown to purple. This is just one thing that just like takes doing
now
this.
It's all changing. It
Yeah.
looks like slowly.
So that's perfect. That's kind of the exact hardness that we want. So now to lock it in place, now we can just kind of cool off the whole thing. And that should stay at that hardness unless we overheat this edge. There we go. That's our chisel.
Cool.
It's our first tool. completed.
That's so cool, dude. That's so cool.
Okay, let's talk about tongs. So what we're going to make today is we're going to make a very simple pair of these flat jaw tongs. We're going to start with some rebar. This is probably like 1/2 inch rebar. Rebar is not necessarily ideal for this, but it's easy to find. It's easy to acquire. This is the jaw or the bit. That'll be shaped however we need. This area where the rivet goes through is called the boss. And then the handles are called the reins. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by forming the jaw, and then the boss, and then because this material is already a relatively appropriate size for the reins, for example like these, we're not going to really have to forge these out very much. I'm going to do one side and then the other because I want these to be relatively close to the same, and that's going to be the best way to do this if you're learning. And tongs are a pain in the ass, I'm going to just say it. Tongs suck to make. I'm miserable right now. Doing this as a way to punish myself for the things I haven't done yet. I'm going to come over to this mark. We're going to do that 1/2 on, 1/2 off blow. You see how that's creating a really clean transition? So that is our set down. What we want is we want a nice flat tab on the end of this bar. Okay, that's the jaw of our tong.
Cool.
What we now need to do is another set down. And if you think about tongs, we need to rotate it in a different plane now. So we have our gripping part, now we need the part where it's going to pivot. You can see my jaw's getting a little twisted. We will be able to fix that later. It was probably just a matter of I wasn't perfectly square with the original plane, but that's, you know, I did that intentionally to show you how to fix it because you'll probably do that. You know, that's really a sign of a good teacher, right, Tim?
That's right.
Okay, so we got 2 flat areas. That's where our rivet is going to go. That's where it's going to pivot. I'm going to flip the bar around, do the exact same thing on the other end, and then we can talk about whether we should drill or whether we should punch our hole for the rivet, and then cut these in half, stick them together, start using them. All right, looking pretty decent to me. Okay, this is where we're going to leave it right now. What we're going to have Tim do is he's going to fashion us a punch so we can actually punch a hole for our rivet, which will be this material to go into. That way each tong can pivot with itself, just like this. So we're going to punch the hole for this to go into. But we don't have a punch, so Tim's gonna make it. How's our temperature looking, Tim? You think we're close?
It looks pretty damn hot. Oop. Straighten it out.
Yep.
So I want you to do one thing.
Yeah.
I want your hammer to be angled more the direction of the taper.
Got it.
That's gonna cause it to bend less. Nice. I'd say let's heat it back up.
Yeah.
And then you'll just keep doing that, basically.
It's more awkward than I thought it was gonna feel like.
Makes it look really easy.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I felt like I was just shooting from the hip right there, big time.
Yeah.
Oh, I fucked that up.
There you go. I want you to have more of an angle on your hammer. And I want you to really imagine you're just really just like pinching this end out. Just like in your mind's eye, that's what you should be thinking about. All right, so I want you to look at the end and see how square it is. It looks pretty square from here.
Pretty square.
That does not, it's like maybe slightly rhombus.
Yeah.
Like you can see this
Yeah.
is slightly
And then
longer.
you can just kind of like.
But I think that's well within the realm of you should keep going. It looks pretty square.
Okay.
That was done really well, how square it is. That's very hard to do. And then you're just gonna keep doing that until that end is 1/4 of an inch square.
It's wild the like time pressure, how it starts to fuck with my like the clock.
I would imagine we're probably pretty close to being hot enough. Yep, that looks good. Nice, that looks way better, Tim.
Whoops.
Wonderful. That's perfect,
Shit.
Tim. No, that's right where it needs to be. That's about 1/4 inch square on the end. So now
Should I
comes,
straighten it out?
you can, yeah. This is a good time for that. Great. So
Look at that ragged punch.
this is great. This is like the pre-form of what it's going to be. So now we're going to turn it into a round cross section. Nice, Tim. So now it seems like just a little more in the middle is what you need, and then I would call that a success. That looks great. That's
Punch worthy?
very punch worthy. I think we should heat this thing up, and then we'll have our punch. I'm going most of the way through, and then I'll drip a little water on the cut and just break it off. Maybe a little more.
Oh.
Okay. All right. We are going to let that air cool to where we can touch it. And that'll be our second tool done. And that's what we'll use to punch the hole in the tongs so we can then finish those. All right, here we go. So we're going to come a little bit below where the jaw of the tong is. We're going to give it a smash. Make sure it's aligned. Make sure it's nice and straight. That looks pretty good. So now we can go about 3/4 of the way through. And you're going to feel it kind of bottom out. Like it won't really want to go past 3/4 of the way through. So I would say we're about halfway right now. So I'm going to take one more heat on it and get it a little bit further. And then you'll actually be able to see, you can tell a little bit right now, but you can tell there's like a little flat spot on the back side. So when I'm ready, when I'm a little further through, it kind of shows me where I need to put the punch on the other side. Okay, so that's 3/4 of the way through. I'm going to flip it over and kind of tell where it needs to go. and pretty much just go until it comes out. You can see we're really close. You can kind of see daylight through there. Just like barely hanging on.
Oh, there it went.
There it went? All right, so same thing on the other side. All right, there we have it.
Cool, that really cleaned up.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it looks great.
I was like, wow, how are you going to clean that up? It looked a little jagged, but you did it.
Yep. Okay. Now is the time to cut this in half. And probably the easiest way to see what roughly half of something is to find where it balances. And that'll get you close enough. All right, maybe rotate it 90 degrees. A little more. There we go. Okay, that should be good. All right, that was pretty close to the middle. So basically these are going to go together like this with that rivet. Okay, this isn't my finest rivet that I have ever made. I'm going to be perfectly honest. That did not go quite as smoothly as I was hoping for. Okay, so now they work. Now I can start kind of straightening everything out. Just like that.
Look at that.
Those will grab some things. They shall function. We got tongs. Well, a lot of people have vices. This is going to be what mine looks like. We basically need to make a big metal staple out of this piece of low carbon steel that we can pound into a stump. And basically once that staple is made, we can drive a wedge into it, and the force and the surface area and the friction of the wedge is going to be what actually locks our material in place. The dream team. Go for it, guys. Yeah. So I'm going to heat up probably like, what's that, like 5 inches or so from the end on each side, and then just turn them 90 degrees, and that is as simple as this is. Let's see, we'll go about that far. It's a nice 90 degreer. That'll do it. You just do the same thing on this side, and that'll give us a nice proper staples. Let's see, that looks about the same amount. Ah, close enough. Okay. We'll give that just a couple minutes to cool down, and then we'll put it in the stump. We'll kind of demonstrate how it works. That's cool. That's probably as far as it needs to go.
Ooh, we got a stump.
We got a stump. So let's say, for example, I want to wedge this guy in and keep it nice and sturdy. I'm actually going to put this a little further down. There we go. So you'd have your wedge in there that you'd beat in. I mean, and it's not going to be like the most amazing thing in the world, but it beats trying to hold on to it. So when we have our knife, for example, we can have this set up. We can have our clamp, and we can basically clamp our knife like this and have a nice, much more sturdy work surface than we would have just trying to hold on to the thing. So super simple, really handy. Anyone can make this anywhere, anytime. We have now graduated to the knife class. If you've survived this far, you might be ready. You're one of us. If you want to be just like Tim, do this.
That was the coolest shit ever. Wow, I actually feel pretty transformed. That was a wild ride of uncertainty and so much work and so much attentive care put into it, and wow. I don't know, I feel pretty floored, actually. That was not what I was expecting to go through making a knife. I think that's what the main thing is. I did not expect to go through that.